Afternoon all. So I'm McCleave from Wallbox. We are an EV charger manufacturer. And our focus really is on helping people to use energy more efficiently, not just about using energy itself. But I wanted to sort of follow on from that panel there and talk about the reality of EV charging, especially in a sort of B2B environment. We're in a current environment whereby power is obviously a very valuable resource at the moment. I'm sure as most of us are certainly realizing in a home and a business sense. And as a business owner and you want to electrify your fleet like the panel I've just been speaking about, that can be more of a challenge than it seems. So how do you make what power you've got at your site go further? In terms of, if you think about a business and you want to set up and you want to have delivery vehicles running from there, or buses or whatever it may be, I guess there's two ways you can look at it. One is you can go to your grid operator and you can have a chat with them and say, hey, I need X amount of power. And if you don't already have that power, they're probably going to come back to you with a very large quote. That's one option. The other one is you can look at it about how you use what energy you've already got and also how you run your operational fleet. So what times of day do you run? How far do they run? And then in reality start to look at power from a perspective of what do I need and when, rather than just a blanket level of power supply for a whole day. And if you look here, there's some very simplified kind of diagrams of how you can look at this. So if you look on the left-hand side, you've got a situation where you've got 4 vehicles. You can charge all of them at full power at, say, 32 amps each. And you can look at that and say, well, I need 128 amps of energy supply. Or you can look at that in a different way and say, well, hey, I've only got 32 amps and I might need to split that 16 amps and 16 amps, or a total of 60 amps and I need to split it 4 ways. But you'll obviously understand that those 3 diagrams, you're going to get a different level of power output. So depending again on how big your battery sizes are, how far you want the vehicles to go, there are different ways that may work for your business and other ways that may not be or work, essentially. So we provide something called multi-level dynamic power sharing. What does that mean? It basically means your building stays within its capacity restraints, so you're not exceeding it, which means you keep the lights on, or you don't trip excessive charges, that you start going above that level when the grid or your energy supplier starts to say, well, that's going to be a lot more expensive. You go back to the other option of going to your grid operator where they may give you a big bill, and for our HQ in Spain, I think we were quoted something like €500,000 to upgrade our power supply there, to go from sort of 200 employees up to the 1,000 plus that we have today. It's an option, but as you can imagine, pulling €500,000 out of the air is not a simple investment to make. Or you can look at what power you've got and work out, actually, can I make what I need to work within what I've already got? And that's what multi-level dynamic power sharing is. It's looking at what you've got, and then it's about delivering it in a slightly different way. So you can see what looks like a slightly complicated diagram here, but you've essentially here got 3 different groups of chargers. You've got that then connected into our software, our Sirius software, and that then connects to the cloud. So what you've essentially got is a piece of software, or the brain, if you like, of the building, that's looking at the building, total power supply and what's going on within that building, and then it's looking at a set of rules and it's saying, well, okay, that group over there is DC charging, it's charging my trucks because they go out on the longest routes, or they're my priority each day, or first vehicles out the building. So it basically goes to that group first and says, hey guys, you can charge at full power, crack on. And then your groups behind that will be a lower priority because they don't need to go out first thing, or they don't run as far, or whatever it may be. So within the overall setup, there's different elements. You've got the cloud and the software. You've obviously got your energy meters because you need to know what power is going on in your building, but not only that, what's being used at any given point in time. Because obviously between typical office hours of 9 and 5, or factory hours, that consumption level within the building will be considerably higher than it may be at 10 o'clock at night or 4 o'clock in the morning. So you've got your energy meters managing that, and then as I say, you've got your clusters of chargers, and they could be charging different types of vehicles, from operational vehicles to employee vehicles to whatever different groups you've got, and they'll have a different priority or a different power need. There's a load of features on here. I won't go through all of them, otherwise we could be here for days. But I think the most important point on this is, this software is hardware agnostic. So if today your building's got whichever brand charger it's got on it, as long as those charge points are what's called OCPP, or Open Charge Point Protocol, as long as they've got that on them, then our software can connect to it. All of our chargers come with that anyway, but it's just a way of communicating to a charger. So as long as you've got that sort of pretty basic technology, then our software can work with that. Then you've got integration with solar, battery storage systems, wind turbines, whatever it might be. So if you're lucky enough to have those kind of things, or maybe you'll retrofit those things, then you want to work within that. And I'll explain that a little bit more in a minute. And then the last bit is about any chargers you're using themselves. So are they unidirectional or bidirectional? And this is the point where people may start to get a little bit confused. So today, your basic charger at home is unidirectional. It's taking power from the home, sending it to your vehicle. Nice and simple. But then there's a concept of bidirectional. So we have a charger called the Quasar, which basically sends energy two ways. So it sends energy from your home or building to your vehicle, or it can take energy from your vehicle and either send that back to the grid or back to the building. In other words, your battery storage just became your car. So how could you integrate that kind of technology as well? Now, the idea is, if you look at this diagram here, so this is a business where it's an operational vehicle depot. Vehicles are coming back at, say, 9 o'clock at night. They need to go back out by whatever time the following morning. Now, if we just go and plug in, then you get the spike you see in that left-hand graph. They come back, everybody plugs in, demand goes crazy, they're all charging at full beans. You need a lot of power to do that. The graph on the right is managed through our software system, because then that says, well, okay, I've got a bunch of vehicles that have come back at 9 o'clock at night. Some need to go out 6 a.m., 4 a.m., whatever it may be tomorrow, but some don't. Some maybe go out later, some maybe go on shorter runs, some maybe come back with 50% in the battery, some come back with 10%. So in that right-hand graph, what you're seeing is a management of those charges, depending on your priorities, to keep that supply 70-something% lower. So in other words, what you've got is, rather than one big peak, you're getting that peak shifted across a longer period of time, but more importantly, you're keeping it within your capacity limits. So rather than go off to your network operator and go, I need tons more power, you're actually saying, well, maybe I don't. Maybe I stick within the power that I've already got. I don't need to pay those big bills, and I just use some clever software that will help me manage the load that I've got. And this is the same graph, but this time the top of the graph is your maximum capacity. That's your agreed supply capacity. So here, 160 kilowatts or whatever it is. And then what you can see within that is your use of energy. Now, this is your building, your vehicles, your charging, everything taken into account. So you can see through that period, the software is kind of managing it. So let's say the building or the factory is using most of the power, and it needs to at that point in time, then clearly any vehicles charging are going to be either running at lower power or slower power, but with an end goal of being ready by the time that you need them. So you get that sort of big energy spike at the sort of towards the right-hand side of the graph, but then through the day itself, it's being managed to sort of different peaks as different parts come into play. So 9 a.m. when the office comes in, or midday when the cafeteria kicks in, or whatever. So it's working within all of those parameters. This is an actual case study. So this is our actual HQ in Barcelona. And what you can see on the graph here is all of the different elements coming into play. So what we've got here is a solar array. We're lucky, we're in Barcelona, so we're blessed on that front. So obviously during the day, what you see is a peak of supply comes in from when the sun comes up to a peak in the middle of the day, and then it tails out towards the end of the day, depending on whether it's summer or winter. So that energy is coming into the building. Then what you've got is at night time, when the time of use tariffs drop to a much cheaper rate, you've actually got our bidirectional charging units taking energy from the grid and putting it into our pool fleet of Nissan Leafs. So we've got 40 Nissan Leafs at HQ, 60 kilowatt battery size in each one. The software is managing to put energy into those units, so during the daytime, you've got the use of your solar power, and that solar power is then being backed up from the car battery supply at peak times during the day. So it's managing a blend of grid, solar, and in this case battery storage with the cars to make sure that building ticks over 100%, but is also using the grid to the minimum level that it can, but when it does need to use the grid, it's using it at a time that is cheaper. And this is a real case. And this is from an office building, as I say, that went from supporting 200 people, and now we have over 1,000 in there. We have a fully operating canteen in there. So our energy demand from 2020 through to today has massively gone through the roof at that building. And it's done, as I say, through Sirius. This here is an output, the dashboard, that was done in October this year. And what you can see on the graph, and we have this in one of our meeting areas, we have a great big screen on the wall that shows us live what's going on with our energy system. And what you can see there are things that you should be able to pick out is the orange kind of dome line that you see going through the sort of middle to right-hand side. That's the solar. So that's where it's coming up in the morning, peaking kind of midday, and obviously tailing off towards the sort of evening time. So you can kind of see that going on. At the bottom of the graph on the far left-hand side, you'll see that's when the car batteries are being topped up from the grid. And then through the day, you'll see that battery power being utilized when the building needs more energy as the usage within the building ramps up. So what you see in terms of the energy being used is the green line. And what you'll notice by the green line, it's operating above the sort of black area. And the black area is the maximum energy supply of that building. So ignoring the battery storage and all that kind of stuff in terms of that grid capacity. So instead of us having to spend €500,000 on grid increase, what we've done instead is invested far less than that in, yes, some more PV. Yes, we've got some pool fleet Nissan Leafs, but we had those anyway. But it's just making more efficient use of the energy that you've got. And that's really what this presentation is all about. It's just trying to make people realize that bumping that fleet up doesn't have to mean great big energy bills to get your energy like running at 1,000,000 miles an hour, because maybe you don't need that. And maybe you do, but that's a different consideration that you have to look at in terms of what vehicles are you running, what's the operational pattern, therefore, actually, when do I need to charge these vehicles? Because in a lot of cases, people aren't thinking about when you've actually got maximum supply, there's hardly any building demand whatsoever, you know, those nighttime and early daytime periods where you can be doing whatever you want. These are some of the other outputs. The other one that's probably interesting on here is the bottom left, and this may not come out brilliantly, but what you can see on the far left, each of those lines is one of our pool vehicles. So that's the Nissan Leaf sat there with a 60 kilowatt battery in it. And probably what you're all thinking is, well, vehicle comes back, you plug it in, it just charges. It just charges till it gets to full, and that's it. It's really simple. You'll see on there dots of green. The dots of the green is where it's charging. And you'll notice they're not long periods of charging. They are, you have to think of this as, say, we've got 40 Nissan Leafs, almost as one big energy or one big battery, and each one is a cell within that battery. And all we're doing is topping each one up, and we're trying to balance them off. So we're not charging to 100%, because our particular rules of our building, we say we don't want to charge them any more than 85, 86%. So we're not trying to go crazy. Equally, we're not draining them down. So even if we needed energy supply in the building, and it was going to take our vehicles down to zero, that's not a lot of use to anybody, because if somebody wants to come and take one of those pool vehicles, well, guess what? You can't, because there's no energy in it. So again, on our software, it will set a minimum level, and it depends on how you want to set it up. But I think on ours, it's set to something like a minimum of 25, 30% to always retain in the car. So someone can jump in it and do something, because they're pool vehicles at the end of the day. So it's just showing you some of the intelligent parts of the system, that it's not just, oh yeah, plug it in and just go crazy and charge full beams. What you're trying to do is build resilience up, because these vehicles will go out during the day. So what you don't want is half your pool fleet are fully charged, the other half aren't, and then guess what? When someone comes to take a pool vehicle, which one are they going to take? The one that's full. So it's just making sure that you've got that resilience behind it. And for any questions, we have actually got other spare Nissan Leafs behind that. So as much as people can take those ones out, there's another probably 10, 15 behind that we actually keep as backups. So it's just trying to sort of show you across that piece, and this is, let's say, a real-life case study that's changing day by day, because we've just put some more solar arrays to cover off our cafeteria that we've installed at our HQ to support the workforce there, because obviously we were introducing another load onto the building that's suddenly going to cook loads of food and do all that good stuff, needs more power. So again, we haven't increased our power supply. Yes, we've increased some PV to take more in, but in terms of the number of Nissan Leafs, stuff like that, stayed exactly the same. Connection to the grid stayed exactly the same. So again, this is just about using energy in the most efficient way possible. Especially, as I say, at current prices, that's something that should resonate with everyone. So that's the presentation. I'm happy to take questions now. I'm not sure if we're doing that, but if not, we're literally the booth right next to the stage there. So if anyone's interested in this or wants to know more about it, then please feel free to come over and visit us. Okay. Apparently we can take questions, so I don't know. Any questions on any element of that somebody wants to raise now? Ooh, lots of shy people. No? Okay, as I say, I'm going to be just over there for the rest of the day, so as I say, if somebody wants to come over and just have a quiet chat about it, I'm more than happy to support that. But thank you.